by entertainment and royal correspondent at the Daily Telegraph, India McTaggart, and political journalist Alicia Fitzgerald. So good to see you both. Very good morning to both of you. One story kind of dominates the front pages, I would say. It's on more papers than any other story, is JD Vance speaking yesterday at the Munich Security Conference. The expectation had been that it would be all focused on Ukraine. That felt like it was going to be the main subject that we're going to hear from the Vice President about, but he had rather a different focus.
He definitely did. And I think the lesson that we can learn here, which I actually do think we should have learnt long before, is that you can't ever expect anything with Trump or his administration. You can never expect that anything is going to be straightforward or the same as what every other nation is going ahead to do. Here, what JD Vance has claimed is that the threat from inside Europe / Britain, basically losing our traditional values and censoring free speech, is more of a threat than, excuse me, than Russia and China on Europe, which is an absolutely extreme statement, clearly. I mean, to claim that losing free speech, even if that were the case, is a bigger threat to a nation than a war-waging dictator and another nation as well that's accused of various cases of espionage in the UK, trying to disrupt our democracy. I mean, to claim that censoring free speech is a big issue in that in the first place is obviously a very big stretch. But secondly, I don't actually really understand exactly what he's getting at here to say that free speech is massively being censored, and that's the other part of it. I think there's kind of two readings of this as well. You can say that this is the Trump administration trying to spread their right-wing message into Europe, trying to see that there has been a rise in populist parties across Europe, so therefore this is their time to swoop in and spread that message. But I do also think we are kind of in danger of potentially over-analysing and slightly over-intellectualising all of it. And actually, what it is just Trump and his administration doing what they always do and stirring the pot, saying the unexpected and knowing that they will end up on pretty much every single front page in the UK, and that's exactly what's happened, and it's worked for them.
And it's certainly taken people in Munich by surprise. I mean, the feeling from previous conferences has been a kind of united front against an aggressive Russia, especially when you're talking about security. And yet he seems to be turning on the people he's normally partnering with.
I mean, yeah, I kind of love the idea of all these delegates packing into the Munich Security Conference, sort of waiting expectantly to hear the latest on the Trump administration's plan for Ukraine. And he just takes a wrecking ball to sort of European culture and literally our ideology. But, I think we can't underestimate, to your point, Trump and his administration's ability to really get at the cultural, hotspot, the hot button issues that I think are bothering people culturally. And, he's not wrong in a lot of these statements that he made yesterday. People are pretty frustrated right now, and I think he really gets at that. And of course, at the security conference, you should be laying out America's plan for Ukraine, for Russia, for all of these things. But I think it's, he did have sort of good reason, I think, to attack some things that he attacked, and obviously it's really made its mark.
What things do you think that he got right?
Well, I think, first of all, we've already seen, the online safety bill is going to be sort of tweaked now. So that's the strong-arming already taking effect in their special relationship with us. So we know that the Trump administration hates the online safety bill because of the fact that it might levy massive taxes on, or massive fines, on US tech companies. And he also brought up, which we'll bring up in the next front page.
Go on to it, go on to it, in the Daily Mail front page.
The free speech in retreat in the UK. And this was sort of a reference to UK's thought crime law that basically bans silent prayer near abortion clinics. And he basically used this as an example of backsliding on freedom of speech and religion in the UK. This was a reference to Adam Smith-Connor. He's the army vet who was convicted in October for praying silently outside an abortion clinic in 2022, He was given a 2-year conditional discharge, ordered to pay £9,000 for breaking a ban on protest within a legal buffer zone. So Smith-Connor actually came out yesterday saying he's delighted that Vance brought this up and is exposing the reality of censorship in Britain. But, I think it's sort of these cultural issues and, of course, immigration and talking about how that's what people voted for in Brexit. And I think people are very frustrated following a series of rulings at the moment about asylum seekers.
OK.
So, yeah, I think that's
So,
fine.
yes, Alicia, what do you make of that? I mean, do you think he
Yeah.
will have struck a chord there on some of these issues?
I think it's totally fair to say that the sentiment of the issues he was trying to get at does exist. There are people who are concerned about free speech. There are people who are concerned about immigration. All of these things can be true at the same time as saying the way in which he expressed that point was totally not correct and actually really kind of implied something that I don't think is accurate to the point whatsoever. And also the timing of making this point, as we were just saying, at this conference, which was really just the focus was meant to be about Ukraine. I mean, that's the thing that is so important at the moment. I think to make a kind of hotspot political point score about a topic that you know is going to chime with some people, a particular part of the electorate, I think potentially could be looked at as not the best politics, I suppose.
But we did have the car that drove into, what was it, injured 30 people in Munich the day before the conference started. And, you know, we've since found out he's an asylum seeker. So again, it's sort of, I think there's a general frustration that's coming out here. But of course, you're right in saying it was a message of drink the MAGA Kool-Aid or you're out.
And some have raised the criticism that he's talking about free speech, and yet Donald Trump will ban reporters from his news conferences if they don't use the language he wants.
A little bit of
talks about
hypocrisy
fake
there,
news.
yeah.
So some people have
Yeah.
accused him of hypocrisy. We've got 30 seconds. Let's very briefly touch on the eye. We can always explore it a little bit later on when we have time. But
Yeah.
tell us what the headline is here.
So this is really interesting. We know that in the past week particularly, we've seen a massive push from the UK government to really get that message out about how tough and how strict they are on illegal migration. And this is just adding another level to that, I suppose. This is targeting particularly Albanians arriving here on small boats. I realise now we're now out of time, so that's all I can
And we
give
shouldn't
you.
have embarked on it. We can always go back
Yeah.
to it in an hour's time when you'll be back. For the moment, though, thanks both very much indeed. Thank you.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered.